I've fallen into the habit the last 6 months or so to start books in the middle of other books. I have about 4 right now around the 60-page mark. Now, I'm not abandoning ship. Here we go with boat metaphors again. But I used to force myself to finish what I started, and it became more about the finishing than the doing. Anyway, I put down The Idiot by Dostoevsky this morning, page 68. Well, I have about 4 Vonnegut books to finish before I've read all of Vonnegut, and that makes me nervous, and I don't want to have finished Vonnegut, so there they sit. But Mother Night was sitting face up on my bookshelf / shoe rack this morning, so I put down The Idiot and grabbed Mother Night before the gym. First thing I read was, "We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful about what we pretend to be." And I'm going to try and correlate this the best that it made sense in my head. I have identity issues, and this isn't some big revelation or confession, more of an admission. Growing up with the face of a woman I didn't meet until I was an adult can do that to a person. So ever since I was young, I make a conscious effort in my everyday life to say I do statements rather than I am. For instance, I am not a runner. I run. I am not an alcoholic. I at one point indulged. I am not an artist. Rachel plays guitar. It's not an original thought, just one that makes sense to me. It gives me freedom to move through my silly little humanity without being attached to the shame of said silly little humanity. That being said, my indulgences aren't limited. And just like the next guy, I want to be the good thing, the strong thing. I want to be the athlete, the runner, the writer. I'm the fastest I've ever been in the last few months, and I've never been the fast one. I was the hard worker, and there was safety in being the hard worker. So I've had a little bit of an identity crisis. And now I've mentioned before what removing a whole organ does to your identity. It makes you feel like you owe every run to the sacrifice of said organ. Like, there she is, Monica. My late uterus's name was Monica. Served up on the platter before me under the gods before I step on that treadmill. Angels humming, that's the sound of the treadmill belt moving beneath my feet, and the chant of my shoes slapping onto that belt. That's the ritual. Anyway, that was a lot, but that's what you can picture in my brain before I start running. Back to today. I'm 10 days into a carnivore diet, just as a little reset, and after 9 days of watching my body, quote unquote, lose all the speed that it worked for, I felt a switch. My body was adapting. I had a moment. I'm not the fast one or the hard worker. I run. We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful what we pretend to be. My driver's license sits in Mother Night at page 20. The book sits in my passenger seat. Finishing books for the sake of having read them. Running miles for the sake of having ran them. I read, I run, I start, I pause, I read, I run. I suppose there's a time and a place for having done the thing for the sake of having the thing done, but to be mid-run and think, wow, I'm running. I imagine that's where the real magic is.